Omi tuntun tìrú ẹja tuntun wọnú odò ẹ tún máa gbọ́.
Ní àbá máa jìbọ̀. Ẹ jẹ́ ká máa bá máa jìbọ̀.
Ayé wa wòran wa bí kìíní ọ̀hún ṣe ń gúnrégé. Ájì Àyìnlá ń gbórin dúró Adéwọlé àyàn Adéwọlé ìlú ó ń lùlù tó fáráyé nínú.
Ẹ jẹ́ ká ní àbá máa jìbọ̀.
Ayé
Ẹ jẹ́ ká máa bá máa jìbọ̀.
ayé wa wòran wa
Bí kìíní ọ̀hún ṣe ń gúnrégé.
bàbá káyọ̀máyọ̀ ọ̀rẹ́ ọmọ wúrà mọ́tò ní la fẹ́ ń wá o kí jẹ́ mi fún tàlá mọ́tò eyín fújò alájà tiwa ni. níbi ìtajà náà kú fẹ́ tẹ̀tẹ̀lẹ̀ o níbẹ̀ lọ́mẹ́rán kò gbé.
I used to work a lot with the then Commissioner for Culture in Ogun State, Ade Bakare, and we were working on promoting Adire. In London, the exhibition was meant to be at the Saatchi Gallery, so I did this Adire that I just felt was very modern, interpreted it in a new way, you know, silk organzas, satins, silk and chiffons. I just wanted it to appeal to my clients abroad, especially my English clients where I'm also based. And so we've done quite a lot, right down to the photographs. We had a photo shoot in London. Sadly, at the last minute, I think here when they said, Ogun State said they couldn't continue. And then she called me, she said, oh, you know what, not to worry, there's a director I've mentioned you to called Mr. Tunde Kelani, and I've told him a lot about you and how you use Adire, also in a modern way, very colorful with the beadings and the embellishment, and that he's working on a film and that hopefully he's going to contact me soon. So one day I was sitting here in my VO studio, I think I just come back from England, and I was saying, gosh, you know, I wish I have a new challenge coming up. And almost like a prayer to God that I need something to sink my teeth into, something that would be a challenge. And I'd spoken to Tunde Kelani a couple of times after the introduction through Yewande. But each time I spoke to him, he said, oh, not yet, hopefully it's going to happen soon. And then I just got this call, boom, TK, as it's fondly called, then said, are you ready? We are going to start shooting the film. I was so excited. In fact, immediately he told me that we're going to go ahead and everything. I'd already started doing my research because before I actually studied fashion in England, I studied to university level in Nigeria. I did primary school in England, and then my secondary, went to Federal Government College, Lagos, and then I also went to University of Lagos. So I studied history combined honors with education at the University of Lagos. So it was like God sent to do research because this is a period film that was shot in the 70s, stroke 80s. So everything to do with him when I got the script had to do with that period. So I went to go and do a lot of research, and I found out about this Adire that had symbolic meanings of that period. And so I just felt, well, this is so appropriate. Sort of put that into the film, and then I had to do a lot of research on the characters. I have a very good costume design assistant, Damala, and so we worked on the project together. So in fact, we'd actually started, because I wanted it to be very specific and detailed, and I knew that by the time they started shooting, I won't have enough time to make all the clothes the way I wanted them to. So despite the fact that they hadn't even confirmed a lot of the characters, they had confirmed the Meiji who was playing Ayinla. So I said, okay, that's good, we can start working on him. So we started working on him months ago, and we didn't have his measurements or anything, but we got pictures. And I think Damala said he'd worked with him before, so was able to give us a brief description on his height, size and that sort of thing. And that's how it started. So strangely enough, when I listened to Ayinla's music, it reminded me of my childhood. My grandmom's from Shagamu, my mom's from Shara, that sort of Remo axis. Although we're Lagosians, my dad's from Lagos, so we're Saliko. When I told my dad I was working on this project, he said yes, he has all Ayinla Omowura's albums. So obviously he must have played it then when we were younger, so everything just started coming together. So I'm quite familiar with the music. And then I did more research on him, and that's how I was able to design more for his character. So it's almost like a paradigm shift in the sense that here I am designing for like maybe English aristocracy in England and doing very English things, things for Royal Ascot, for Henley Regatta, And then coming to Nigeria, opening a shop here, and there was a huge demand for my work. So though then I only did mostly evening wear, day wear, but very English. Then later on, I introduced Adire to my collections a long time ago. And a friend of mine came and said, "Oh, you don't work with Adire, his mom does Adire." And I said, "It's not very luxurious, it's very sort of stiff, hard, doesn't translate to couture." So he said, "No, Adire is the process," but I didn't understand what he meant. So he said, "Okay, give me the fabrics you like working with." This was Shegun Lawson. "And I will work on them for you." But I just looked around and I had all these silk fabrics with me. And I gave them to him. Months later, he came one day and said, "Oh, do you like these fabrics?" And I said, "Yes." I said, "Gosh, where did you get these fabrics from? I love them. Very soft, very luxurious." He said, "These are the fabrics you gave me." I said, "Oh, amazing." He said, "Adire is a process. Adire can be applied to any fabric." So I said, "That's interesting." And this was like in 2007, 2008. And so I started giving him a lot of fabrics. But even then, I still wasn't really convinced because it wasn't something I was used to working with. But we made these fabrics from silk Adire, silk chiffon. And then I put them in the shop here. But even in the shop there, they were even at the back. So when the clients would come, they'd look at all our designs, and everything was brought from England. And gradually they'll shift to the back, and they'll say, "Oh, but we like this, really like this," and everything. So one day I asked the client, "You all seem to like this. Why is it so popular amongst the ladies in Lagos?" And the lady just quantified everything. She said, "This is us. This is who we are." Yes, you do the beautiful evening wear, you do the suits and these beautiful fabrics, but Adire is us, so we can relate to it more. And that was the genesis of me using Adire, even before I met Yewande. And that's how it snowballed. But I think working on the film Ayinla almost put everything that I'd been working at in the past, brought everything together. So all the Adires that we had done in the past now became relevant, but more especially the symbolic Adire that had meaning. So hopefully when you watch the film, you'd have Adire that had Ilari, which was comb, Ila, which meant lines, Ododo, which is flower, Orobo, which means bitter cola. All these were taken from these Adire books that I used to do research on. And I remember Nike Ogunlesi of Rough and Tumble. She gave me a book. She actually said it was the last book. Nika said, "I'd like you to have this book." I think her mom's label then was Betty-O. But she did a lot of research on Adire, and it's in this book that Nika kindly gave me. So a lot of the references also came from there. The film Ayinla, when you watch it, you see different components of what we've been doing over the years, and it sort of just captured everything. We're able to work with ashoke, brocades. Even the ashoke, I made sure they were woven for that period, which was prevalent then, which was very fashionable. Because it's a period film, you have to be very careful that anything you do or design was relevant then, because you could not do something that's modern now and then have it change. Because I remember we did this beautiful sort of design, and TK said, "Oh, no, phonics wasn't used then in the 80s, so we had to scrap that," and that Tinko was appropriate and anything hand embroidery. So in the film, on Ayla's clothes, you see a lot of the Tinko and hand embroidery that went to it, and also the other characters too. We incorporated that into what they were wearing. What I found working with TK was that I'd gone to do a lot of research on his other films. So like I'd watched Efun Shito, Showoride, Thunderbolt, Leku, and those other films. And that gave me a better understanding on how he tries to promote the best of Yoruba culture. So I felt it was like an honor working with him. And I had to come up to speed and make sure that I showed these characters to the best of their light and of the fabrics and the clothes and styles which was worn in that period. So when you watch the film, you'd see that there was a lot of attention to detail. Even a lot of the embroidery was color contrast, so it would show more. And that was also very fashionable then. Unlike now that, a lot of it blends in. Then you could have sort of a wine ashoke, and then it would just have like a lemon green embroidery. So I tried to incorporate a lot of that into the film. But I just felt that's what was worn then, and it was fashionable, and trying to highlight it. I mean, the whole idea basically is that when you watch the film, these clothes should create modern trends. Because I'd been very Western in my approach to design. And I even remember the fashion editors then in England would say, "Oh, you need to put a bit of your culture into what you're designing. But having grown up in Nigeria in the 80s, we always looked to the West, sadly. So everything was, then they used to say ready-made, all the clothes like sort of ready-made, and everything was like you went to England on holiday and you brought things back. So there wasn't in the 80s a lot of emphasis on wearing traditional clothes like adire, ashoke. We all wore Western attire. So when I was approached to do the film, I did a lot of research and it was really about Yoruba culture. I felt I had to reflect the best of this. And then for me, how I was able to shift from being a very Western designer to now doing something traditional, I think was research. Research is very key. Having studied history in university, I'm able to do research easily. There's a lot of work involved, but you now understand how to approach it. So I did all my mood boards, did a lot of research on Abeokuta especially, colors and that sort of thing. Watched a lot of older films, traditional films. And they show a lot of them also on DSTV apart from Kelani's films. Then I immersed myself in Yoruba culture. And it's amazing because the film actually brought to light to me that a lot of the Yoruba culture we see today actually also originates from Ibadan. A lot of the styles came from there too. And fortunately, one of my tailors is from Ibadan. And we always did embroidery. But when I said, no, as is this embroidery we're going to do now, it's going to be old embroidery, but modern in color. And these are the colors I want you to work with. And I gave him the samples. For some were done in Obalende, because I have a chap called Musa, and he does the embroidery for me also. But they were not vivid. But Aziz was able to understand a bit better. I just feel that it's research that helps you understand. So even if tomorrow I was told I had to work on maybe a film by Osita Osadebe or Damaraya Jos, I'll just have to do research on them. Then I'll be able to come up with the right goods and deliver. Because it's a period film, I have to be sensitive to what I'm delivering. So as much as I'd want to modernize, and that came later, I still have to remember this is a period film. So basically, they have to be styles and the fabrics of that period. There's very little artistic license to then express yourself totally. So what we then did was, because I wanted this film to be able to go further, I was able to design a collection which will be released after the film called Ayinla Omowura. Now that's a total modern interpretation of the film and of what was worn then, and especially of Yoruba culture. But what you'd see in the film is almost like the richness of Yoruba culture, the use of ashoke, the use of adire, the use of laces. Laces, especially in the 80s, there were different types of laces, especially one you see, which was very rich. And actually it was banned. I remember reading it in the newspaper, even then when I was a lot younger, it was almost 100 naira a yard. And that's why the government came in to ban it. I think it was in front of the Daily Times. If you look at the value then, traveling to England was only 300 naira. So for you to buy one Yossi, a lady would buy 5 yards, a man would buy 10 yards. And I think a Volkswagen car then maybe cost 1,500 naira. So basically, you bought the one Yossi, it was almost the price of a car. So I think the government came in later and said, no, this is too excessive. But the beauty of it was that it was such a beautiful lace. Because remember, my parents had it and I looked at it and the detail. And one you see actually means sprinkling salt on it. And it was basically sprinkling petals on it. So that's what we tried to capture in the film. We bought this beautiful, colorful lace. But then cut the lace again and put it all over. I think you'll see Ayinla wear that at the Centenary Hall. But that's one of the grand performances. And I just felt that lace would suit that sort of setup, that background, because it's very majestic. So I just felt it would be very appropriate for him to wear that one you'll see during the Centenary Hall performance. So basically it was like the best of Yoruba culture, the beading, the detailing on the hat, velvet, any fabric that was used then, I tried to reflect it to the richness of it and colors. Because I think when the West look to Africa, what they see, what they don't see in other continents is color. And vivid colors. Hopefully when you watch the film, that's what should strike you, the vividness of the colors. And some of it was captured on silk, because colors easily are captured in natural fibers. So like silk can retain a lot of color, and I use a lot of that in the film. So hopefully when you watch the film, you would see striking colors like purples, oranges, yellows, blues, vivid colors. I wanted that captured in the film.
àrùn jíjẹ kan ẹ̀bùn lọ́wọ́ ẹ̀bùn lòun ṣe fújì ní ìgboro ó fọwọ́ yọkun òkúta ń bọ̀. ká tó pẹ́ lẹ́sẹ̀ jẹ́ pé ẹ̀yin kò.